Alrighty. All right, it's recording. So sorry, I'm outside. Um, Basically, I'm doing a journalism package on the growth of technology and AI and students kind of entering like jobs right now when it's really become a big thing, especially in Boston with all of these kind of big tech companies moving here. I just kind of wanted to ask you a few questions. And first, like, what's your background in technology and how did you get into media and technology?
Okay, so I have a kind of conventional art education, that I did my undergraduate work at UCSD, University of California, San Diego in the 80s. And although it was a conventional kind of arts program within the Department of Visual Arts. I studied painting and sculpture and drawing, photography in particular, but it was also a very conceptual school. So I kind of come from that background with an eye on with an emphasis on ideas, but using kind of conventional medium at times. But when I went to do my graduate work at the University of Colorado in Boulder, this is the late 80s at this point. It was at the time that the computers were first starting to emerge in college, art departments. Like the first Mac lab kind of showed up while I was doing my MFA work. And so I was kind of focusing on photography. I was like teaching undergraduate photography courses. But I adopted the digital technology kind of immediately and started experimenting to see what it meant for artists to get their hands on these new tools. And then I kind of, from that point forward, once I kind of graduated with my MFA, I kind of found a niche for myself in academia where I would, kind of specialized in introducing new technology into conventional art programs. And it's kind of what I did I took an assistant professor position in the 1994 at the University of Florida to update their creative photography area and introduce computing into it. Then I kind of came up to New England in 1999 and kind of headed up the digital art program at the University of Massachusetts in Lowell. I did that for 3 years until this position opened up in 2002 here at Emerson. And so I've been teaching art technology ever since. I kind of specialize in teaching 3D modeling and animation and kind of gaming technology because of the kind of core skill set uh, that it takes to for aspiring artists to kind of engage with the technology in a fluent way. In other words, my interest isn't so much in the kind of entertainment industry aspects of these technologies. It's what artists can do with them as expressive tools, for tools of self-expression. But there has to be a certain kind of a skill set that the students have to acquire in terms of being able to solve really hard technical problems towards creative ends that they have to kind of get through that before they can work independently and turn those tools to their own creative self-expression. And so that gets, by that point, that's the students could be doing anything from virtual reality to physical computing, robotics. We've had students do projects, across the board. We try to try and support students with whatever kind of artwork they want to make using new technologies at the capstone level and at the graduate level. And that includes artificial intelligence as well, that we've been seeing experiments kind of emerge in the artificial intelligence realm. And I'll let you ask some more questions about that. But in a kind of nutshell, it's kind of what I've done all my career is to engage new technologies. Yeah.
It's really cool. I could never. Just hearing about it, I'm confused. So you talked a little bit about virtual reality. How is this developed like in film and in the arts over the past like couple of years? It's obviously become a bigger deal. And also in Boston, like have you seen different kinds of technology being used even in the arts in such a tech hub of a city with like MIT nearby and all of that?
Sure. Boston is kind of a special place, and it's kind of stature in the world of well, it's stature in the world of technology is undisputed, obviously, because of MIT being located here and the kind of just the number of institutions of higher education that are able to kind of specialize like Emerson does. It's kind of that cluster of higher education and science and stuff that has made Boston a very special place at the forefront of technology around the world, obviously. In the world where that intersects with art, which is, I think, where Emerson has the opportunity to shine, because they're not an engineering school, but we have very creative students who have been trained in kind of storytelling, and we can talk about how that starts to become increasingly important, the ability to tell stories or not. There's also just the ability to kind of express yourself is going to be one of these skills that is going to become paramount as we start as we start increasingly seeing the impacts of automation and the integration of artificial intelligence into professions across the board, especially kind of learned professions and what kind of white collar jobs and that sort of thing. Is that we had, the goal now is to kind of focus on that part that makes us human, right? Like how do we determine what's left once we turn all of the kind of busy work over to AI? And there's no better way of becoming attuned and in touch with the the creative imagination, which is so fundamental to what makes us human, what makes us different than the machine, than the study of art for its own sake. And I'll try and make a case that all of a sudden, like kind of art was kind of moved to kind of sidelined by STEM programs in the 1990s. That all of the focus was on the STEM disciplines, and the arts kind of got pushed out the door. But I think that a lot of what the professions that come out of STEM education now are the first ones that are kind of getting automated through not just artificial intelligence, but also robotics and so forth. And so we kind of, as an educational institution, we have to kind of we have to adjust to the fact that all of a sudden I think that in the future, those qualities that we understand to be very much human and different than something a machine can do, comes from the human creativity, and so I think that art is going to reestablish its place in the role of education. Let me just say a couple more things about why Boston. Obviously on the engineering side of things and just the technology itself, MIT, but there was a whole time about the time, well, before I got here, but there was a time during the late 90s and the 2000s and stuff where in the world of art and technology that Boston was the place. It like beat out New York or Paris or London at the time, largely because MIT was there, but also that there was a lot of artists that were working. Artists were running the media lab, and a lot of artists were coming out of the media lab. That's changed a lot in the last decade or so. But there was also a program called the Center for Advanced Visual Studies, or CAVS, that ran out of MIT even back as far as the 60s. And so this kind of intersection of art and technology has always been around in Boston. There was a thing called the Boston Cyber Arts Festival, which was a yearly festival that happened throughout the city that helped bolster the Boston's role. And so this is all kind of in the kind of the milieu of having impacts even out in kind of industry around it. The fact that there's just a cluster of creative people that had technical chops that was helping to attract some of the smartest people and stuff to the Boston area. And I think that there's a lot of fear and loathing about artificial intelligence. A lot of people are afraid of it, and I understand it. There's a lot of potential um, uh, uh, perils, uh, but we're going to have to adjust to it because it's not going to go away. Yeah, and if you want the quote, it kind of goes something like, "All institutions are technologically contingent. And higher education is has always been technologically contingent. In fact, higher education was born out of the advent of literacy itself and the
Mhm.
technology of alphabetic writing. And we wouldn't exist as an institution if it wasn't for the technology of writing throughout literacy. Problem is now is that we're starting to like literacy, the whole paradigm of literacy or the apparatus of literacy is giving way to something new. And there's been a word that's been associated with this called electracy to kind of help define it as being different than literacy, but it's certainly post-literate. Uh, the world is becoming post-literate, and we could talk plenty about that, but it might be a little bit too much to write about. But the point is that every institution is technologically contingent, and if any institution just simply tries to ignore these changes or just to reject them outright because of the perils, then the institution itself risks becoming obsolete or irrelevant, right? That other new institutions will slip in to take their place. And it's my hope that, higher education can make it through this transition, but it means you don't just blindly embrace uh, the infiltration of algorithms and artificial intelligence into our worldview and our whole way of kind of cognition and thinking uncritically. It's really important to uh, to um, to be kind of like I like to say that I'm agnostic about it. It's both the poison and the cure. The value judgment is kind of irrelevant. They were just simply this is going to happen, and there's going to be uh, promises and there's going to be perils. But if you're not engaged in it, then you're not going to be in a position to have agency or to engage in its becoming, right? So if our students just never get the experience having to make tough ethical choices with artificial intelligence, for instance, then they're not going to be in a position to have agency to help determine what the AI models become. And so I think it's really imperative that the students are being exposed and having to make the hard decisions, having to be faced with uh, the the possibilities of cheating on their the way that learning is measured um, in in literacy was through exams and essays, right? That's how we measure if learning has taken place. And so, what's it mean if students are coming in with their essays all written by AI, or the exam is being taken by AI, that we have to figure out something else to do. And it's going to take trust. We're going to have to trust that the students will choose not to cheat. If they do, it's at their own, peril. You know, that they'll lose out on some of the more important things that uh, education has to offer. They just kind of wrote repetitive um, regurgitation of things to know. Sorry, I'll tend to go on, but hopefully you can take some out of that from the
No,
article.
yes, this is great. So with AI, how would students maybe use that to their advantage when they're like entering maybe a tech job here in Boston or anywhere really? Like, how should students use AI to their advantage without overusing it and not like using their human side?
Well, first of all, you don't use it to cheat. If it, and again, if we're understanding the value of the creative imagination, you don't use the AI to replace that. The creative imagination part. The creative imagination part has to come first, and in fact, that's the most important thing. But then you need to know how to talk to the machine. You know what I'm saying? You don't want the machine uh, uh, producing the creative thought. You want the creative thought to be, you want students to be able to communicate with the machine about their creative thinking. And so it's kind of the difference between using the AI as a tool, like I want a picture of this, and so you make it a prompt in Nano Banana or something that makes an image like this if it's not hallucinating or really the term is confabulating, which means that well, confabulation is like memory isn't humans confabulate all the time because memory isn't perfect. And so if you're trying to recall something, your mind will make up stuff that it doesn't quite remember right. That's called confabulation. That's what these models will tend to do. But the point about that is that that's kind of using like a generative text to image AI system. You say, I want a picture of that, or I want a video of that. And they're getting better and better and giving us. Exactly what we want. And the question is, do we really want what we really want? So like that's uh that so what we want to be doing, and this is still like this issue isn't answered yet, but the key to kind of understanding what to do is that rather than using these systems as tools, we want to use them as a medium. In other words, like an artist can adopt these large language models in a way that it's like the equivalent of their 16 millimeter film or their paint or something like that, right? And so with the idea that you would invent new forms of art and communication and expression using these tools that didn't exist before. And so one way to kind of think about it is if like the problem right now is that everybody's experience with artificial intelligence is through this kind of Instagram slop that people are just kind of throwing out on the internet and stuff, right? Just kind of thoughtlessly. And but like if you look in the sciences, for instance, there's um, a uh, the DeepMind is this AI company in London that they were behind the first building an AI system that could beat the world's best chess player, and then they went on to build an AI system that beat the world's best Go player, right? And so it started kind of gaming, uh, but then the uh, but now what they're doing is something called protein folding, which is it's an arm of the biological sciences where uh, the uh, the molecules in a protein will fold a couple of ways, like millions of different ways, and that's what gives genes their expression in biology. And like humans can figure it out for individual proteins, but it could take a PhD student an entire PhD to figure out one. And they've got the system now has folded essentially every protein. You might want to look up the facts on that, but I think essentially every protein in the library was done through these AI systems. So what is the equivalent of that in the world of creative self-expression or the arts? You see what I'm saying? Like it's certainly not just being able to kind of tell a generative system to make a video because it's of a unicorn on a volcano or something, right? That there has to be the kind of equivalent, and that's what as an artist and a researcher, that's kind of the terrain that I've been exploring. Spent the last 3 years writing a book on trying to offer up a pedagogy in a post AI civilization, and we're just kind of shopping it around to publishers right now. But I don't know that it's ready for curriculum at the undergraduate level yet. This is stuff that really needs to be thought through in a way that kind of maintains kind of safety guardrails and that sort of thing. But it's kind of like the way to kind of think about it. Is it okay if I keep going here? Okay. The way to kind of think about it is we spent from the 90s on with the emergence of the internet digitizing everything that humans ever wrote, every book that was ever written, every song that was ever sung, every movie that was ever made. It got digitized into this kind of vast database. And for a couple of decades, then the internet emerged as a kind of interface to be able to access everything humans have ever thought. It's the thing that it's heading towards, right? And for a while, the internet was okay for that. Like it was like all of a sudden you could have access to any book in any library, through the internet. But at this point, there's such a glut of everything that humans have ever thought that even the internet is no longer capable of doing that. And if it's done well, these are large language models will become the interface to everything humans have ever thought or done. And if we had if humankind had access to everything that humans have ever thought or done, what would we do with that? Would we uh, make kind of baubles and kitsch, or would we make deep fake porn or Instagram slop? Uh, you know what I'm saying? Or is there a different thing we could be doing, right? And so that's what institutions that they're going to maintain their relevancy would be trying to answer that question, the because it's coming, you know.
Yeah.
The other thing that seems to be happening is that we let rich people just kind of profit from it.
Yeah.
Would we allow that to if that was the case? If we had access to everything humans have ever thought, would we let a handful of rich people just monetize it?
Yeah. This is just kind of my own curiosity. Um, what do you think about like with AI and the environment? Like, there's a lot of discourse about that. What
Yeah.
does it actually mean? I guess.
This is I mean, it's a good question, and this is the PharmaCon. The I brought that up before. It's both the poison and the cure. It could solve global warming if it was done right. And it could just, tip us over the edge into uh, and I mean, it's like the problem is kind of the race to monetize stuff in the model of this is an actual term. Cory Doctorow wrote a book called Inshitification, which was where, if you remember the province of the internet, probably don't want to guess your age, but maybe too young for the emergence of the internet. You just
Mhm.
simply grew up with it, right? But
Yeah.
there was so much promise to social media in the early days, right?
Mhm.
Until it became inshitified, which means that you get everybody kind of locked into a platform, so it's hard to leave. And then you start, monetizing it by, filling it full of ads first. And as soon as and when the even the advertising gets inshitified, then they start just simply selling the data, right? And so the emergence of AI is taking that same kind of a track where a handful of people are trying to just leverage it. They're in a race to monetize it first. And so they're building all of these kind of data centers that are going to suck all the electricity out of the grid. And what are we going to do about that? But like, what are we going to do about the oil fires in the Strait of Hormuz? And the reality is that anybody who's in the entertainment industry needs to be just as critical about streaming technologies. Or just those are run on data centers as well, and they're using all the electricity and water as well. And part of the lesson of this transition from literacy to electracy, because the emergence of electracy like it began in the early days of the Industrial Revolution, but then it kind of mirrors the emergence of the Anthropocene. And what Anthropocene means is uh, that we, the fault is within, kind of, right? That right that we're all to blame, kind of, for the emergence of the pharmacon. That, and the fact that every technology that is developed is its own catastrophe. Like, if you invent a train, you simultaneously invent the train wreck. Or you invent a plane, you simultaneously invent the plane wreck. So if we invent alien intelligence, we also invent the alien intelligent catastrophe, right? But that's us doing it. you know? And so the question is can we do it right or something? The And I don't know the answer to that, but we can't ignore it, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. It's definitely interesting thinking about it. I never thought about it from like the streaming service. Like it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I guess like, do you have any final things to add? Because we're almost out of time for the Zoom, I think. So just
It's
honestly, anything you want to talk about.
here's the thing is that like people's exposure and one of the thing the the fear and loathing of the emergence of AI comes from a couple different places. First of all, it's displacing a lot of people. So for young people coming, this is the topic of your article that for young people coming out of college, out of university, they're entering a job market where all of the so many jobs are going to be replaced, and that's just kind of clear. And the and so you can see why people would be angry about that. But it's also exposure to like the kind of nonsense that you see on social media and that sort of thing, that kind of stereotypes and kind of racist biases and that sort of thing on the internet. But the reality is that that everything is becoming algorithmic. So your social the social media addictions are all being driven now by algorithmic AI, and this emerging surveillance state is being run by algorithmic AI. And so it's not even something that you're seeing, manifest itself so directly as like a bad uh, uh, AI generated video or something, or even a funny one, or some propaganda political ad, deepfake political ad. It's changing our fundamental worldview, our metaphysics. It's changing the way we think and view the world. It's not the people call it the kind of the era of post-truth because truth and falsity were a result of instrumental reason that literacy gave us, right? Like science is a way of proving whether something's true or false. And just like oral people before us, that the institutions of the religion help people determine what was right and wrong, and that doesn't go away. We can still have science to determine what's true and false, but electricity is on a completely different cognitive set that is more focused on attraction and repulsion, right? And so like right now, like don't quote me as saying Donald Trump is all attraction repulsion. Like the right and wrong of it, the true and false of it, it's just not even there. And that's the job I think of higher education is that the metaphysics for electricity doesn't exist yet. It has to be a kind of stack that is bolstered. It's like the foundation of these other metaphysics from the other paradigms, right? The right, wrong. Well, you go all the way back to paleo times. It's the life and death, right and wrong, truth and false have to hold up the attraction, and then the attraction and repulsion of electricity uh, will not, tear us all down and destroy democracy and everything that it threatens to do.
Well, I mean, great for me. Like these answers. Yeah, I don't really have anything else. I feel like I got plenty, so thank you.
Will you send a link when it gets published?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, we're doing some stuff with it next week, so it'll be done at the end of next week. So
Perfect.
cool. All right.
Jules, I've enjoyed meeting you, and
Yeah,
I hope I gave you something you could use.
you definitely did. Yeah. You made me learn more too. All right. Thank you. Bye.